although it's a romance movie and so funny, it is so complex and so layered and so dramatic and emotional. And so it was such a exciting opportunity as an actress to get to take on as many emotions that Clara has.
I've loved watching you grow up on screen, essentially. No. And you're stepping into these wonderful age-appropriate roles. I would love to know for you, how was it diving into Colleen's emotional world as Clara? And how did that change you differently as an actress coming from that sort of perspective?
It was so fun. It was so fun, number one, to get to step. I like to use phrased as age appropriate because the only way that I know how to explain is in like coming from being a child actor. Now I'm doing a more mature role, but not really. I'm just like playing my age. But it was really fun getting to do that, especially in a film like this, in a romance, because that's something that I've never gotten to explore in a film. But it was so fun and such a cool opportunity because although it's a romance movie and so funny, it is so complex and so layered and so dramatic and emotional. And so it was such a exciting opportunity as an actress to get to take on as many emotions that Clara has.
Mason, what I love about this character of yours is that there is a situation that happens between Clara and Miller where Clara's intentions come into question, whether or not she takes advantage of him. And I loved seeing this portrayed on screen because normally it's a role reverse. Usually it's a girl being taken advantage of. And I think it's important to show this sort of side. What were your thoughts on, what this character is going through in that particular situation? And is it important to you as well to portray that sort of scenario on scene?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's, exactly getting taken advantage of. Clara went through, a lot in this movie, and she's confused and kind of angry. And, I think a lot of things can just be a little confusing at times. But I think, intention-wise, she loves Miller and Miller loves her. And it's just, it's kind of a time where they really need to be there for each other and understand each other, which, they are. And I think it's a really important thing and super special. So, yeah.
What in this particular film was challenging to adapt, and how did you know when you actually got it right?
You never know if you got it right. You have to tell me if I got it right. But it's like all my movies to some degree or another have been coming of age stories. And I'm interested in movies and in stories about the relationships between parents and their children. I'm interested in that moment in a young adult's life where they realize that their parent is fallible and not as perfect as they imagined. I think about those moments from my own life and from when I was a teenager and having a daughter now who's a teenager. You see all these things play out, and it's like everybody has complicated family dynamics and histories that they don't know about maybe till later in their life, or they learn stuff about their families they didn't know. I just related to all that and felt all that, and all that stuff is in these other movies that I've made as well. So I guess it would probably take a psychiatrist to tell me why, but I do continue to tend to be drawn to stories like this. And I'm also just a fan of trying to get movies about humans into theaters to combat a little bit of just like the lack of variety,
I would love to know from each of you, what would be sort of a one piece of life advice that your character could give each of you? Clara to Mckenna, Miller to Mason.
I find that in watching Clara and Morgan, I wish they communicated a lot more. And for me, I find that in my own life, like over communication and just making sure that, like, Clara and Morgan are just like the biggest miscommunication trope because the entire film is just like, oh my God, talk it out. Like, tell each other what's happening in your lives. So to me, it's just communication. And I suppose that I can take that away from Clara.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. But yeah, genuinely, I think, communication and just in general is so important to understand how somebody's feeling and kind of like what you were saying in this movie. I think that's a really important topic. And there's a lot of topics going on in this movie, and I think it's so real and everybody can find themselves in each character. I think it's really important, so yeah.
How did you know that these two were, meant to be on screen?
Well, look, I mean, my son who's 9, so he watched those 2 Ghostbusters movies that Mckenna was in often. So I would always see her with like glasses and like black curly hair, and she looked nothing like Mckenna that I know. And so I thought, oh, this girl's great. This is awesome. And then when I would go home to Virginia to visit my mom, she was always watching Young Sheldon on Netflix. So I really know Mckenna's work through seeing it in passing as other people were watching it. But when I met her, I already thought she was incredible because I met her and she really looked like the girl in my movie. And it's like, I was so impressed that she had created that character in Ghostbusters that was so different from who she was, that I just thought, like, this girl's a chameleon. Like, she's an incredible actor. And then being a massive Stephen King fan, I love The Black Phone because Steve's son, Joe, wrote it. And so I already wanted Mason just based on the fact that I loved him in Black Phone, and it was kismet that they already knew each other and were friendly. And they built that friendship over the year between us casting them and shooting the movie. So by the time they came to me, they were the best of friends. It was a delight to have them on set. They were always so funny, and they would torture me by singing Creed. They had this Creed song that they would sing together to torture me, and I was like, oh God, Creed. Because I had to put the soundtrack together for all my movies, and Creed is no bueno. It's not gonna happen. So there's no Creed on my soundtracks.
Well, the two of you, your chemistry just glows on screen. I was rooting for the two of you from beginning to end, and you guys are just fantastic. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.